All right, guys, it's been a while since we got a chance to talk wrestling. And whenever we do, there's only two people I call up. One of them is being very unprofessional this week and actually
Shocking.
spending time with her family before she goes on a trip. Like, ahead of talking about wrestling on a podcast, like I don't know what her priorities are like, but Katie Harvey is not here unfortunately this week. We will catch up with her again in the future. But joining me to discuss all things wrestling on a major week for professional wrestling, obviously with Survivor Series coming up, AEW Full Gear just passed. It is my former tag team partner in Low Blows podcast, and it is the one, the only Corporate Keen. Corporate Keen, you're very welcome back to
Yeah.
page 180. Delighted to be chatting, and we have so much to discuss. I think there's only one place we can start though. And that is where someone that we essentially worked with previously behind the scenes, someone who was on our show multiple times before, someone who used to come to Low Blows nights in Buskers. Fun fact, fun story. Longtime listeners of Low Blows may remember Katie once telling the story of, do you want to have a jive? Where someone got really drunk during a party and asked Katie to go have a jive with her. It didn't end too well. We ended up having to get security. He tried to double leg them and he got thrown out in spectacular fashion. But it actually started with him asking, I think, this person for a jive, which is not how she gets introduced in any other the segment that she's on any these days. But I am talking about the one, the only former Irish Junior Heavyweight Champion, former OTT champion, Lyra Valkyria, who recently defeated Becky Lynch to win the NXT Women's Championship. Amazing stuff, because we've seen Irish people go on to have success before, but I think with what we do on the podcast, Lyra is Katie's best friend, and it's someone that we were worked quite closely with. So we're really getting an up close and personal view of her story as she goes on to superstardom. What were your thoughts on all of this, the match, the aftermath, and just her rise as a star? We want to just check in because we haven't really got a chance to discuss it beyond like the group chat that we have. What are your thoughts on Lyra's the rise?
It's mad because it's like the first time that I've seen somebody like, because obviously Becky, Sheamus, Balor, all these, like, I never saw them, like, they were already stars when I first knew them, do you know, that kind of way. Don't get me wrong, still absolutely scream my head off when Becky won the Rumble, all that sort of stuff. But like Sheamus in particular was already like well decorated when I started watching WWE again. So this is the first time where I've seen somebody like, you know what I mean? Where like a commentating their matches in front of like 100 people, you know what I mean? Like a community center. And then like, you know what I mean? Like somebody you see literally from like really early stages, like develop, like get better and better and better. And then like end up in WWE and then get better and better and better. And then win the NXT Women's title. It's fucking deadly. But at the same time, what I find kind of like interesting, at least, I don't know, maybe it's different for you, but what I found kind of weird was that like, I wasn't even like surprised really. Like I wasn't like, like I didn't, unfortunately, I actually didn't even get to watch the match. I kind of just opened up Twitter. I didn't even know what day it was. I opened up Twitter and saw she was the champion. I was just sort of like, that's deadly, but also like, kind of like it sort of feels right. Do you know what I mean? Like I wasn't like, it wasn't the biggest shock ever, but it's yeah, it's really surreal. Did you see? I didn't want to say this. I didn't want to say this at the time because I didn't want to like kill the buzz of it because it was like really cool. But did you see that video package that they did for Becky Lynch and like obviously the whole match they were gonna do, where they had like that. It was really like visually, it was really well made. The story was really good, but they decided
Katie
to make
was
the
in it.
narrator.
I think we need to add Katie was in the background, little blurred Katie Harvey in the background.
I love like whenever you see Fight Factory popping up in like WWE video packages to pause it and just like look at people in the background. And there's something similar without getting too sidetracked with like the TNA gut check or whatever it was in the UK. Like there's loads of like Fight Factory people there, so I kept pausing it and being like, "Oh, there's your man," you know what I mean? But I was watching the video package. I was like, "Oh, this is like a really cool. Like, I'm really hyped for this match." But then the person started talking, and they were like, "I knew you back when you were in school," and I was like, "Oh my god, oh my!" They have Irish employees, and they couldn't, they couldn't just ask like Kevin Patrick or one of
Kevin
them to
Patrick's
hang out,
right there, like right there.
or some Irish person somewhere, even just for one voice acting thing. Like they had to like get a fake American. And the funniest part was, I looked at it on Twitter and I saw the response to that video as well. And all the Americans were like, oh my God, an Irish accent as well. It's like really tops it all off.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like kind of takes it away. But it didn't ruin the whole thing, obviously, because it was just fucking class. And yeah, I am buzzing to see what's next.
Yeah, yeah, and I agree. I've got to see kind of the start to finish before, obviously, would have trained with Sheamus and kind of seen him on his highs and lows. But again, there was kind of the different. This feels very different to Sheamus because there was a jumping off point with Sheamus. There was kind of a stage where he went into star mode just before he got signed. Like he got an agent, and all of a sudden he became very distant from all of us. So, before he got to, yeah, it was a bit wild. So again, and that's. I just felt we weren't sat side by side with him in the way, like, the thing I love about Lyra Valkyria is she's still so connected to where she is. Like, if she's in Ireland, there's been times where I've been at Fight Factory shows and then, like, I'm like, there's like NXT wrestler Lyra Valkyria just like sneaking through the crowd, like to go see her mates wrestle because she's home for the week. And she's still so connected to it. And that's what I think makes this feel special. And I agree because, yeah, it's not surprising. First off, because of how talented she is, and we all know that that's there. So her success isn't a surprise to anyone who has experienced it, but also because, again, the road has kind of been paved now. And that's like, again, she's wrestling Becky Lynch, who paved that road for her to be able to walk down. So yeah, I agree that while it's amazing on a personal level, it's not necessarily the achievement to be like Ireland has a world champion, because at this stage, everyone who gets signed to WWE from Ireland ends up with a world championship reign. And that's fucking deadly that that's the norm, like, and it's starting to come that way, like even in UFC after Conor McGregor, you've got Ian Gary's success and so on. So again, like it's just becoming a norm, and it's a great thing to see for Irish people. The other thing that I love about this, right, and you'll appreciate this, is for anyone who may not follow independent wrestling or have seen Lyra Valkyria beforehand, they're kind of like probably looking at her as like, oh yeah, she's just kind of a blue chipper, she's just learning her way at the moment. But for the likes of us who've seen her, like, we know that she's experiencing all this success. And again, what I love about this success the most is I don't feel like this was pre-written. I don't feel like when she was signed for NXT, I feel like they gave her a big deal kind of vibe when she got signed, but I don't feel like they were kind of like, in the same way that Jade Cargill is going to get like 15 championship reigns, like just by the way they're building her. She didn't get that build. It's like, yeah, she could like be a big star, or they could just not do anything with her and we'll never see her again, but at the same time, it just happened organically. The Becky thing happened, and obviously this was a natural match to make with Becky, and it's something that I believe Becky was pushing for. Because again, like, you consider the stuff that was recorded in Fight Factory happened years ago, and that happened at Becky Lynch's behest, basically, when she was kind of still, I think that was when she was on her run where she ended up main event in WrestleMania, when all that happened. So again, you're talking a few years ago, but Becky obviously has pushed this narrative, has wanted to do it and push forward, but then you have to have the crowd as well go along with it and want it to actually make the title switch happen, or else they're just going to do a regular, they'll give Becky the match and they give Valkyria the match, but they won't do anything else with it. But what I love most about it is, we know that they haven't even started with what they have with Lyra Valkyria yet. From what we've seen of her when she was Valkyrie over here, she hasn't done any heel work yet. She hasn't done any comedy work yet. Like, if you think of the stuff she did in the Woke Queens, that the stuff I'm thinking of, I'm like, when she starts doing stuff like she did with the Woke Queens, that character-based comedy stuff, I'm like, that's what's gonna make her big when she's on Raw. You know what I mean? That's the style that WWE will love about her, because that's the stuff like, do you remember we had, who was it a few years ago? We used to love her on the show, Billie Kay. All of a sudden there was a stage where it was like, oh, Billie Kay's really funny now. And I feel like there's that moment that we can still have with Lyra Valkyria. It's a really, really exciting time. And she's doing all this while she's giving away nothing. She still has so much left to kind of give them personality wise and in the ring as well. So just a really, really exciting time, and just a genuinely good person, hardworking person, someone that it's nice to have a wrestler succeeding over here where we're like, are they going to be involved in a scandal someday? No, because we know her since she was a teenager. This is just always who she is and who she's always been. So really, really happy to see good things happen to good people. Corporate Keen, are you keeping up with any AEW lately?
So, I actually was. I texted you like yesterday, being like, "Yeah, no, there's a 0% chance that I'm gonna be watching Full Gear by the time we speak." And I literally like today, I texted you with like update. Stayed up till 5 in the morning watching Full Gear. But funny, right? Before Full Gear, yeah, before last night, the last time I actually watched AEW was in London. I only realized that. Yeah, I only realized that I was chatting to people about like, because like I keep up to date, like I keep up with wrestling, and I have a rough idea of what's going on. But there'll be a lot of things that I'll miss, like the whole sort of like Omega and Jericho versus the Young Bucks. I had no idea what was going on there. Like there was a lot of things where I literally like, this person has a title, these people won this, like there's a lot that I don't know, where I don't know what's going on. And it's just funny how like. No, I've just been busy, to be honest. My plan is, when it comes to Christmas, that this time last year, I think, was when I had so much spare time around Christmas that I ended up getting into like basketball and shit. Nice. So I'm if I have that sort of opportunity again this Christmas, my plan is to kind of like reset, get back into, AEW, WWE, and of course, I don't think we were going to mention it tonight, but TNA. We haven't mentioned that yet.
Go for it.
The absolute buzz I got, of like, I don't know if you saw Scott D'Amora's speech where he explained the whole going back to TNA. Oh, that got me so excited, man. So TNA, my plan is to just immerse myself in so much wrestling that I hate it again in a month. But my plan is to catch up. AEW, like, I assume we're about to like get into AEW generally. My big thing with AEW right now though is that nothing really feels important. You know what I mean? Like I really am not enjoying this MJF. This iteration of MJF. Now I know a lot of people really loved MJF and Adam Cole. I'm aware that like a lot of people liked it, but I never really felt that invested in it, and it doesn't feel like the world title doesn't feel as important as it should be, in my opinion. You know what I mean? There's a lot going on. Like a lot of things. Like now, again, maybe because I wasn't watching, but where did Ricky Starks and what's the name now? Big Bill?
No one understood it. Like everyone thought. Everyone thought, because do you remember like the FTR were holding the belts, and do you remember one of them? It was Dax got arrested. You remember in London, everyone was like, "Dak is going to shoot you. Dak is going to for having a gun." Like, and they just dropped the belts unceremoniously on Collision against this team that we weren't actually sure were a team. Like the story came up because Ricky Starks ended up getting himself suspended for 1 week from Collision, and he got a manager's license, and he decided, I'm going to manage Big Bill, because that let him be back on the show and cut a promo on the person he was shooting, or I think it was CM Punk at the time. And then it's like, oh, they're a tag team now, and then they just won. So we're like, oh, your man's obviously going to prison, but he's not. it just happened. They just gave the belts.
Like, there's too many belts, and also a big issue that I have with AEW right now, and I believe this is a big reason as to why nothing feels important. Like when Collision, now obviously I can't blame them for like sacking CM Punk after he came back and effectively like he came back and like effectively wanted to get sacked. Do you know what I mean? I can't, like, don't get me wrong, I love they kept him, but I can't blame them. You know what I mean? Like by the time they sacked him, it's like, right, fair enough. But
did I tell you about the CM Punk experience we had in Wembley? So this was brilliant. Okay, so we're both of us obviously were in Wembley for AEW All In. In my section, we started having huge Punk debates, and I just love making CM Punk jokes. Like I just love being like, and I'll do it to you because you're a CM Punk fan. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of winding everyone up, and I'm like, the most awkward part about like telling people in public you're a CM Punk fan is admitting you're a virgin and stuff like that as well. And there was loads of like hardcore fans around me that were like getting wound up and stuff like that, but they were giving it back, and it was good natured ribbon. You know what I mean? It's what I liked about it, because no one was taking the situation too seriously or getting too hot, but we were still really digging into our trenches, like a Man United and a Liverpool fan, like going for it, you know. I really liked it, and then like we had like the entrance, and then like everyone's going mad. Like I was singing the entrance, and I'm like, I hate this, but it's a really good song. And like we're going mad, and then like the match happened, and then like as the match happened, we all kind of had like the dual chants and stuff like that as well, which was savage crack. And then like about an hour later, like I literally read out my phone, CM Punk got in a fight tonight, and he's been kicked out of the arena. And then I just saw there was one guy who was in front of me, really charismatic American guy, who was really going at it with me, and I literally just saw him deflate, and he's just like, for fuck's sake. He's like, you try support this guy and he just fucks you every time.
That's mad, because we had so our experience, it was me, obviously Nathan's a fucking diehard like CM Punk fan as well. Everyone else in our section was it was just me and Nathan. Like everyone else is like anti CM Punk. So it's like when the second he comes out, it's just me and him, like, yeah. But I loved getting to see that match in person, but also you said it was an hour. It wasn't even. It was almost instantaneous. The second he went backstage, I remember like that. It was really funny because you only get to see him, the buzz, right? When everybody turned around their phones. It's like, do you ever see like a relegation battle or like a title battle on the last day in the Premier League, and people are checking their phones, see scores elsewhere. Everybody heading their phones are like, oh my god, oh my god. And it's like a little wave around you, like, oh my god, oh my god. You're like, what? It's like he's after battering Jungle Boy. I feel like this is class. Like, like, unfortunately, obviously what I led to, but the excitement in the moment was a lot of fun. So I don't know. I enjoyed that. Like, I can't remember what I was originally even talking about. I got sidetracked there. Oh, no, getting sacked.
AEW. Let's.
No, I remember now. So basically, I don't blame them for sacking Punk, but my big issue now is they've Dynamite and they've Collision, and when Punk was initially on Collision, right? This really impressed me. This is something that really grabbed me. Collision had such a strong identity because both shows were class in their own way. The Elite, you had the Elite, the MJFs, the Pillars, the Chosen Ones. They're all great wrestlers in their own right as well. But then on the other, you kind of have like the Punks, the Joes, the Ricky Starks, the Thunder Roses, the House of Blacks, who are also elite wrestlers, but they're kind of like almost like outcasts because there's just so many like wrestlers. You know what I mean? It's like this is their show where they get to prove themselves in a wrestling heavy, very unique, almost old school type environment. You know what I mean? And not since I was a kid, when I used to watch Raw and SmackDown, have I ever felt such a strong like, all right, this is the same company, but these are two very different shows, two very different worlds. And I looked at it there the other week, and it's fucking Collision with Ric Flair on the poster and Edge, and like fucking, it's just Dynamite again. You know what I mean? And it's like, and then there's Rampage, which again is just waffle. Like there's no structure, or like it's almost if Tony Khan got really excited as a fan to be able to sign like 200 wrestlers, and then went, oh shit, what now? Like I love AEW. I love the fact there's a second major US promotion. I think that's really important. And a promotion that sort of has its own way of like, obviously we get to see like violence and stuff, and we get to see things that we wouldn't get to see in WWE, and it's all really cool. I do love AEW, but like Tony Khan is fairly wank at this. I have to say, like, he's not great. Like
it's do you know what it is? And I've got a theory, and I might have talked about it, but I think now it's actually, I think it is something I got into on Low Blows, but I don't think about Tony Khan. But this is a great case in point for it, because for me, when we went to Wembley, and I remember saying it there, I think I said it to yourself at the time, it felt like going into Wembley, it was like, even beforehand, it felt like the season finale of AEW being cool, if that makes sense. Like where it was this old cool promotion that was pushing boundaries and doing things you'd never see WWE do. And it felt like, because they were doing it, we were all there, and it was fun and it was exciting and there was a lot happening, but also, there was that kind of wanky stuff creeping in where it was like, I can see this like just turning a corner now after it. And that's kind of unfortunately what happened. CM Punk essentially, as fun as it was and entertaining to watch, because again, it's not our company, so we don't have to give a fuck if it looks like a joke, but he did make them look like a laughing stock. Like even Tony Khan having to go on television and it'd be like, I feared for my life.
Did you see the commentators on because obviously CM Punk's like an MMA commentator in some like regional company in America, and like they like to throw little, like his co-commentator always throws in little kind of little remarks over, and he said like CM Punk is in the building, some people apparently fear for their life when they're around.
But it's like, you're such a fucking geek, man. It's like you run the company and there's like 50 wrestlers there. You're not going to die because like a weird guy is shouting at you.
If it was like Brock Lesnar, or like, you know what I mean, or like a
Yeah,
fucking like Braun Strowman is ripping down your door, you'd be like, all right, you know what? I think we'd all shit ourselves a little bit in that scenario. You know what I mean? But it's like, it's CM Punk. We've seen him fight for real. You know what I mean? Like, and it wasn't good. Like,
yeah, just stick a PFL fighter on him. You're grand. You don't even need the UFC. Like, yeah, and like it was kind of seeing him get to go around and kind of swing his dick around and do whatever the fuck he wants. And then eventually it was under duress, where like essentially he reduced Tony Khan. He like stripped away his manhood, and then Tony Khan, in an effort to retain it, had to sack him eventually after the 55th offense. That undermined the company so much. And then bringing in Adam Copeland, he is not the replacement, and him versus Christian, to me, is starting to make them feel like that period of TNA where it was just all the old WWE guys. And it's like, you know, that period of TNA where you're watching and you're like, this is shit, but like, good for Booker T. You know what I mean? And it's just like, you know, it's like, I'm glad he's getting a paycheck, but I'm not going to be interested in this. And that's kind of the way it's starting to feel. Adam Cole, I do not know how to say this, right? Adam Cole and Roderick Strong are not fucking funny in any way whatsoever. This is not funny. Having a guy who has never been a comedy wrestler all of a sudden start shouting, Adam, that's not funny at all. And they're trying so hard. It's embarrassing. I remember there was an issue a few weeks ago on Dynamite where the comedy package played without sound on the TBS feed or TNT feed, whichever one they're on. And then Tony Khan played the 5-minute package again, but I'd already watched it and I was like, I feel like I'm going insane. This is such bad comedy that I have to now sit through for a second time in a row. You're talking about like, why is Chris Jericho with Kenny Omega? It doesn't make sense. None of it makes sense. It's so embarrassing. Like, Chris Jericho essentially is a good guy now because he tried to join the Don Callis family and Don Callis turned on him and rejected him. So essentially he wanted to be a bad guy, but was rejected. So by default, he's good now.
He's in his Madcap Moss era.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then like the young bucks are like the whole feud happened because the young bucks are like, Kenny, this guy's a dickhead. And it's like, yeah, he is. He wanted to be a bad guy. Like, but now they're the bad guy. And it's just like all over the place. And like every show, for having so much talent signed, feels empty. Like, even when good things happen, like you have last night's Full Gear, which we've watched. We're not going to get into a full review or anything like that, but like there was some really good stuff on there. Hangman against Strickland in the dead match.
Oh, I was saving that. I could talk about that for days.
And we will. Don't worry, we will. But like there's the Young Bucks tag. But then like you have like mental booking for the main event. We'll get to that. But so again, you're kind of like at the end of it going, I've seen some really good stuff and I enjoy, but I just still feel like this company is the Driz. And this is the theory that I have. And we can jump off with that and kind of touch on some of the things from Full Gear last night. I've got a theory that even the best wrestling bookers, I don't think that Tony Khan is necessarily a bad wrestling booker because he gave us like 4 years of great memories. You know what I mean? And he's responsible for all the good things we've experienced too. And we have loved aspects of AEW and they have pushed boundaries and succeeded in things. Again, like Dave Meltzer made actually quite a good point for once when he said that they've went against WWE in 79 weeks as of like last Friday when SmackDown went against Collision and Rampage, and they've won 77 of those 79 weeks, which is mad, like, and that's a huge achievement. They're the first company since WCW to beat WWE in the ratings, period. And that was all Tony Khan too. But I've got a theory that even the best wrestling minds, and we've even seen this with the like people we love and respect to this day, like Paul Heyman, but I believe that they have like maximum of 5 years of great stories in them, and then after those 5 years, like even, and it's the same with any storytellers only have a certain amount of stories in them, but like where we talk about films and TV, you can jump genres, you can jump into something else, you can kind of put your own twist on a different story, so you can keep doing it. Like Martin Scorsese, like even with Killers of the Flower Moon, he did a historical story about Native Americans and kind of the white man's crusade against them and so on and so so forth, but he did it in a Martin Scorsese way. So there's different ways of spinning the same stories. But in wrestling, you've just got the one form and you've just got the one format. So eventually, after 5 years of watching someone do the same stories, we know where the twists are. We know what's going to go. So they're either left repeating the same stories all over again, and it just gets very predictable and stale, which is how WWE by the end of Vince McMahon got. It was like you could barely watch it because you're like, I know exactly what's going to happen. Or it goes the other way where they're trying to still be creative, but there's no juice left, and it just gets really cringy and it gets really embarrassing, like the Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, MJF stuff. And I feel like that's unfortunately what's happening with Tony Khan. And I just feel like he needs help. It's like, mate, you're trying to write 40 wrestling TV shows every week, Dynamite, Collision, Rampage, Ring of Honor, 4 TV shows for one man every single week, 52 weeks a year. I don't care how hard you work, you cannot do this, mate. And that's kind of where I'm at. Even when we have like a good show where with a lot to like Full Gear. And Cian, you're the kind of guy that I kind of feel like we feel very similar on this. I was thinking when you were coming on, I'm like, Cian might make me feel more positive because you like things kind of even after they're kind of gone into this post-cool phase. Like you like TNA and Impact, you know, you still follow OTT and stuff like that as well. And one thing I like about talking to you is you'll sometimes help me find things to appreciate in there. But I feel like we're very much on the same mind here. So what are your own kind of thoughts on what's going on? And again, we can kind of talk to you a bit of Full Gear as we go.
Well, I haven't really been watching closely for the last like 3 months, so I don't know where to go in terms of like positives, but from watching Full Gear, I do have one positive. One very, very strong positive, and it is Swerve fucking Strickland. Yeah. I remember talking to you, it would have been a while ago because it would have been on like oh yeah, it would have been like in probably when we recorded in Fight Factory, so it was a while back. I remember saying like AEW have a lot of wrestlers who are kind of like, in my opinion, genuinely world champion level, but we haven't seen it because there's just so much going on. They haven't had their chance. And I don't believe that everybody, like, I was never like, for example, a Keith Lee person. I think there's a lot of people who are good, but you know, in a company like this, you still have to be like the best. But I look at like the Malachi Blacks, the Samoa Joes, the Eddie Kingstons, a few people who I've always looked at as like, no, you could actually genuinely put the title on them. This Swerve Strickland was one of those people for like since he signed, I was like, I swear to God. And people were around this time, I think he was teaming with Keith Lee, and people were like, no, like I don't really like any of this Swerve Strickland stuff. Like he's a bit cheesy or he's a bit whatever. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, like there is a fucking like world champion in there, right? So this seeing like his feud with Hangman, which to be fair also brought out the best of Hangman as well. But seeing this feud with Hangman really proper fucking elevate Swerve Strickland to that status now. You know what I mean? And like fucking, oh my God, even in like Wembley, when everybody's like, yeah, like 80,000 people fucking screaming Swerve how and like it's just like you could genuinely, and that's what they should do. I'm not even taking the piss. They should have Strickland just come in and fucking beat MJF for the title next. Like that, there's no reason not to. The people will fucking love it, and he's good enough for it, and it's just everything. It's like the one thing that's like fallen into place really well. And I'm very, very excited about it.
It's the one thing that like it's the one thing that WWE, even in the darker years where the content wasn't as good, and we're not there, to be honest. It's such a weird world that we're in now compared to when we were podcasting, when we were doing low blows every week, and AEW is very much cool and WWE was very much shit and passe, and it's just totally flipped now, like randomly. I don't understand it, but like we're in a different world now. I feel like we just stopped looking for 5 minutes and the entire world changed. But like but one thing WWE were very good at is they are good at just getting the guy who catches fire and just pushing him all the way to the top and just letting the fans ride that wave. And they did it time and time again with Daniel Bryan, Becky Lynch, Kofi Kingston, you know, LA Knight they're doing it with now. You know, they know how to grab Sami Zayn as well, got to push. I know it didn't end up with the title, but like they can capture that lightning in a bottle and they will let the fans go on that journey and let them get the goodwill out of it. I do worry because I don't think we've necessarily seen AEW do that. I think Tony Khan is very much a slave to his own, the ideas that he came up with in his basement when he used to do E-Fed booking. I think he's very much like kind of, well, this is the plan and MJF is the star and we have to do this and we have to do that. So it'll be interesting to see if they can swerve in terms of their overall plans as time goes on. I would like to see that though, because I think he is catching fire. I loved one bit. The match again was just sick. It was brutal.
Oh, guess what time? By the way, guess what time I decided? You know what? It's I've done. Yeah, I think now is a good time to bang with the Pringles and the cookies and just start eating. Eating my my AEW food.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
right. Because I wasn't even thinking like, oh, death match. I was just thinking like, I was this is the match I was looking forward to more than any of the other ones. So I was like, I'll just start eating now. And then I saw the blood going in his mouth, and I was like,
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, Hangman cut Swerve Strickland and then lay under him and let Swerve bleed into his mouth. It was, yeah. And the thing is, as well, I was talking about Saltburn earlier on. I was doing a review of it earlier on the show. I'd seen that earlier on the day, so it actually wasn't one of the top 5 weirdest fetishistic things I'd seen that day, but it was pretty fucked up all the same. Great match, though. I loved as well the entrance where they hired professional dancers and then they had them do Prince Nana's version of the Swerve dance. And I'm like, I just imagined the rehearsal where he's like, you just gotta kind of like shake your arms and then you just kind of twirl. And then they're like, this isn't dancing. It was very entertaining. But yeah, they're catching fire and stuff. So yeah, Swerve is something I'd like to see, because for me, as much as I like and respect MJF, and I've said for a long time that for me, the winner, if there is a war, is someone that whoever has MJF's contract, like kind of as he hits his peak, because I still don't feel like MJF is hitting his peak. I still feel like he is someone who is incredibly talented, incredibly successful, but he's also very young. And what's interesting about following his career trajectory is he still makes mistakes quite regularly, and he has to kind of adjust as he goes on. And that's just a fascinating watch on a week-to-week basis. However, I'm going to be honest, what I'm not finding fascinating is the actual storylines he's getting in as this babyface champion. And AEW seem to be betting the house on it, and it doesn't appear to be working. Last night was the first time you checked in, and it is probably the most upset I've seen people with the championship reign. For anyone who hasn't watched, essentially what happened, MJF is also the tag team champions in ROH with Adam Cole. They ended up, Adam Cole is obviously injured, but MJF is defending them by himself, but they were supposed to fight the Guns. Samoa Joe filled in for Adam Cole under the promise that he get a title match. Afterwards, the Bullet Club Gold ended up attacking MJF and taking him out, so he was injured. Adam Cole was also there, but obviously he's on crutches. Adam Cole agrees that he's now the champion and he will defend MJF's honor despite being injured so much that he had to have a replacement in Samoa Joe earlier in the night. So then MJF comes back out from the hospital in time for the main event and then beats the shit out of all of Bullet Club Gold despite being too injured to wrestle, that he had to let an actually injured Adam Cole fill in for him. And it was just all over the place. I appreciate what they were going for. I appreciate what they were trying, but man, it was a fucking mess. Like,
I love how when MJF was injured and potentially ruled out of competition, they were like, right, so are we going to postpone this match? Are we going to, vacate the title, have a new match? Are we going to do an interim title? And like, no, we're going to reward, we're just going to give the title to the person who didn't win anything. That's the logical thing to do. Yeah. No, I'm not even talking about Adam Cole. I'm talking about just before he came out, it's like, yeah, we're just going to give the title to Jay White. That's what would obviously happen in this situation. I remember in the UFC, every time somebody gets injured, they typically just give the belt to their opponent just for the laugh. And also the fact that Adam Cole came out and it's like, I have news from Tony Khan. It's like, well, why didn't he tell them that first? Like, why would he send them out to give Jay White the belt and then send you out after? Why did he not just tell them first?
I know he was too busy fearing for his life somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh my God, cowering in a corner. You know what I mean? Someone looked at him funny. Yeah, I know it was a bit of a mess, and it is unfortunate because AEW it's still the show that I watch Dynamite every week. I've watched every episode of Dynamite. Sometimes through my hands these days more often than not. But I do want it to succeed, and I do like it. But ultimately, as strange as it is, WWE is now the hot, cool product in town, and we're heading towards Survivor Series next Saturday. Again, loving these dual Saturday pay-per-views week to week. All on board. The more of this, the better. And again, kind of the theme for Survivor Series this year is War Games. I do want to touch on kind of, is that what we want in general going forward? But first off, I kind of want to discuss the big talking point. And the talking point I know you very much would like to discuss. The main event, as it stands, is currently set as a 4 versus 4 War Games match, Judgment Day. Of course, you've got Balor. You've got now JD McDonough, the new addition to the Judgment Day, more Irish success in WWE. You've got also Dominic Priest and Dominic Mysterio and Damian Priest, and they're scheduled to fight Sami Zayn, Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, and Jey Uso. But of course, last week we saw Drew McIntyre turned on Seth Rollins and Cody and Sami, and Jey, of course, after pushing them for weeks against warning them against trusting Jey Uso, which seems to set up a 5v4 situation, which seems to set up that there will be potentially a TBA involved, which is interesting because a man we discussed earlier on has been in the free agent market. Survivor Series is happening in that man's hometown of Chicago, Illinois. And there's been rumors that this has been happening, and it all seems to be falling into place. A week from now, Corporate Keen, are we going to see CM Punk return next week to WWE in Survivor Series as TBA in the War Games match?
No, it's 100% Randy Orton. I thought the thing is, I don't even really like, and I say this as like the biggest CM Punk fan ever. I don't really, I never imagined WWE being like, oh, CM Punk's free agent now. We can bring him in. It's like, well, I mean, he's not in AEW, so it's not like, he's boosting anybody else. You know what I mean? I don't really see from their perspective why they'd bring him in, even though I'd love to see it, but like, it's not like they're sitting around going, man, what would Cian want though? You know what I mean? They're probably thinking like, a bit more than that. Like, what really interests me, without getting too sidetracked at the minute, is it's the second TNA mention in one podcast. I don't know what your thoughts are on the sort of links between Punk and TNA and how that could potentially, because they're rebranding. And obviously they're going to be looking for like TV deals and shit like that. If they have Punk, that would kind of open up some opportunities for them. For Punk, it's it's not WWE or AEW. It's his own place that you can, again, another place that you can kind of go to, whatever. I don't know if you see that happening, but that, to me, that would be a more realistic option. I'm not saying it won't. I mean, obviously it's wrestling. Anything can happen in wrestling, right? But I just find it hard to imagine WWE sitting around and saying, yeah, we'll bring Punk in. And also, like, I don't know, like, it's just with the thought of Punk being like, oh, class, I get to work for Triple H. He was never one of those lads. He hates Triple H as much as, like, Vince McMahon or any of them. You know what I mean? Like, it's all the same to him. So if he scrapped with everyone in AEW at Collision and shit, like, if he was given his own show with his own roster, he got to play Universe mode in real life and still managed to fight with everyone, right? Could you imagine him going to WWE just to Triple H's fucking, you know what I mean? Like, it is such, like, I hope they do it. I really hope they do it, but I can't imagine it. Like, I don't have my hopes up. I'd almost sooner believe that the devil in AEW is fucking CM Punk than I would, WWE. Like, yeah, as far-fetched as that is, I'm not saying that's likely either. But that would be more likely than this, I think. I just can't visualize it. Now, fair, maybe it could happen. I'd love to see it, but I don't know. I think, do you know what I'd really love to see though? If we are, well, obviously we're not going to see it. If it's 5-on-5 and Drew McIntyre is on an already full team, this is just a little side note about that match in particular. I think it's mad how like Rhea Ripley's not in the match. I know like that, like I'm not going to go on the big intergender rant or whatever, right? But like this is the sort of match where I'm like, isn't it mad how like you've got somebody who is so like made for this match, this story, like somebody who should, like, is such an important part of the faction, but because like Rhea Ripley's a woman, she has to go and wrestle Zoe Stark instead, and we have Rhea. I looked up the card before this, so I knew what we'd be talking about, right? Rhea Ripley versus Zoe Stark. I actually just while we're on this topic, right? I saw like a clip of the promo of Rhea Ripley like talking to Zoe Stark, and I was like, this is really like, This is the most preseason friendly energy I've ever seen to any match, because it's like any major player in the women's division is in the War Games match. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's just literally like Zoe. Have I again? Because again, like with AEW, I've missed nothing.
No, there was a lumberjack match and Zoe Stark won, and we're like, literally everyone else is a better option.
Is
I'm
this
like,
like
literally everyone else is the better option. This is like the hangover of, we put her with Trish Stratus because we wanted to kind of give her the rub. So I guess we have to pay it off somewhere. And she's just going to job out to Rhea Ripley, and we'll probably never hear from her again, if I'm being honest. That's it.
this?
That's
Is
literally it.
this like when do you remember when like they used to always give Natalia the title shots?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
whenever they didn't know what to
exactly.
do, they'd be like,
Yeah.
all right, fucking Natalia,
Except
get in
like
there.
she's not tenured, she's not particularly liked, and there's no justification for it. You
Yeah,
could at least justify Natalia as, she's been around a while and she's won the
yeah.
hearts. It's like, I
Well,
don't know what the because is for Zoe Stark, but she's here and we're going to have to watch it.
yeah, I think no, I think that match should have been scrapped, and Rhea should have absolutely been the War Games match. I understand
Yeah.
McIntyre turning heel and all that is cool. I'm looking forward to seeing heel McIntyre, and obviously he's somebody who you know does belong in a match of this stature, but I would be far more intrigued to see like literally it's a 5-on-5 and the Judgment Day is 5 members. You know what I mean? And Rhea Ripley is like arguably the leader. That's the whole story. You know what I mean? And it's to me, it's such a waste of so much to just not have her in there. You know what I mean?
I hear you. And look, the last time we talked wrestling on this, I gave you my theory that I think Rhea
Oh,
Ripley
yeah.
is going to be a man. I think she's going to like, I don't know if she's going to be the person to beat Reigns, but I think she's going to win a world championship at one stage. Like, and she's going to do what China never did, you know, and she's going to push that boundary to the next level. So I hear you, and I'm totally on board for this. The one thing I'll say is, right, there's potentially a cooler, more star-making way of having Rhea Ripley. I think the first time she crosses into that world needs to matter. You know what I mean? So it could be her entering a men's Royal Rumble and just being like, this is happening now. But like, if she enters, she has to win. You know what I mean? Like, so,
or God, that's no, you just give me a good idea. Like Dominic or like somebody like JD or someone ends up being injured or like incapacitated, they need a 5th member and she walks out. That's a shout, actually. Yeah. I get you.
Like, it has to matter, it has to hit, and she has to be successful at it. You know what I mean? So I think the only justification for it is that it's just not big enough to have her just be like, oh yeah, well, I guess she's a member, so she may as well wrestle. So she's perfectly capable of it. You know, so like, you know, I think it just has to hit more for what they potentially have there. But I still think that's very much in play for the future. But I do hear you. I agree. And actually, it's funny you say that, because when this has been brought to me, is it going to be CM Punk? I've said the exact same thing, where I'm like, I actually see him more likely as the devil, and I don't see it likely as him being the devil. It would be perfectly karmic and fitting for him as someone who finds him more of an interesting irritant in professional wrestling than anything else, to see him have to languish within TNA and be like, come on, it's a thing, everybody. And everyone's like, yeah, we just don't care about you anymore. He's just stuck in purgatory of TNA. Were you there? You know, he has like one impassioned fan at least, but like, I just feel like that would be an interesting fit for him. I agree, it's Randy Orton. The one thing that I'd say is they cannot go into Chicago on Sunday with it being TBA. They have to announce it on Raw on Sunday, because otherwise it is good. The rumor mill is going to go insane by this time next week, and Randy Orton's return is going to get shit on. But yeah, I totally agree. It is Orton.
I've seen people apparently, like, or a lot of people are saying that apparently WWE have been dropping a lot of like CM Punk references and things like that, like kind of hinting towards CM Punk. I don't know, again, I don't know how true it is, but I saw somebody on Reddit fucking proper broke it down. But it's times that I'm like, is that a CM Punk reference, or does CM Punk just speak English and those are also words in the English language? You know what I mean? Like people are saying like Nakamura said something in his promo about like, you know, oh, you know, after your next battle, like I want to fight you and all. It's like, oh, that's CM Punk because CM Punk has had a battle, or I just think it's like a bit of it. I don't know if like if that's because basically the argument was during Nakamura's match, people were chanting CM Punk, and people were saying, and this is the reason I mention this, because Reddit is a very like anti CM Punk crowd. If you ever like you know browse whatever, it's a very anti CM Punk audience. And they were actually saying, no, they're chanting this because WWE actually did, in fairness, like hint to CM Punk. So that's the only thing that would make me possibly believe that he could be coming over. But then I'm like, it would have to surely be Survivor Series. I doubt they'd wait until like Royal Rumble or WrestleMania for CM Punk when it's like Chicago. You know what I mean? I feel like if they're gonna do it, it would surely be Survivor Series. It's not like, because I'm pretty sure they can bring him in whenever. I don't think there's like any like, you know, no compete clause or anything like that. So yeah, so I don't know. I'll obviously that'll be my hope when I sit down to watch Survivor Series, if there is still a TBA or a surprise. Even like, I don't know if you saw this. I just shared it on Twitter like months ago. Somebody did an edit and these edits are crazy. Like, they're so realistic, even though like it's made up of like completely unrelated clips. Of CM Punk showing up as a surprise to attack Roman Reigns at Survivor Series, and it was like it looked so realistic that I was like, holy shit, imagine though, like imagine something like that happened. I don't know. Also, is LA Knight in this match? Who's on the babyface team?
He's not. It's Cody, Sammy Rollins, Jey Uso, and TBA. But like,
that is shocking.
LA Knight isn't. He's feuding with the Bloodline. He's not feuding with. It wouldn't make sense to parachute him in here.
The reason I mentioned LA Knight is because did you see that thing I shared the other day? I couldn't stop laughing at it for ages, of an old Facebook post I found from 2016.
Yes.
2016 of me being like, I said, I hadn't even done my leaving cert at this point, and I was like, Eli Drake is the future. Yes, none of you are watching Impact. None of you know how good he is. I'm fucking telling you, Eli Drake is the future. And I was like, oh, that is some fucking that is like some invest in Bitcoin type stuff.
I'm not gonna son you or anything, all right, but did you watch The Hero when it aired first? The Rock's reality TV show with a little known Eli Drake being like, I'm a professional wrestler too.
But somebody said, right? And I honest to God, right? I hope LA Knight gets a WrestleMania main event, because I think his video package, right? Do you remember that video package that The Miz did for WrestleMania where he's looking at all the TVs?
Hate me now.
That's a flashback of his career, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a serious video package that you could do with LA Knight where it's like, I've been there the whole time. Because there's so many like clips of him in the background of like different things with Triple H, security appearances, jobber appearances, reality show appearances, like all these random things, and it's like he's always there, he's always in the background, you know what I mean? He's been around, like he's old, like he's like 40 or something, like he's been around 40. Like for years, you know what I mean? It's just it's only now that he's getting that recognition. So there's so much good shit they can do with LA Knight. I'm absolutely like, I'll mention this now because he's not in the card. But this LA Knight stuff is, for me, the highlight of WWE at the minute. You know what I mean? The fact that, like, it's not even like my love for LA Knight aside, right? The fact that, like, there's a star in WWE that everybody's absolutely clamoring for, that's really charismatic, really entertaining. And like, I don't know if like you experience this when you're in London, right? But like, we'd be going to like the streets of fucking around Wembley, you know, getting food and stuff before the show, and like just see like thousands and thousands of wrestling fans, and one person would just go, yeah, and then you'd hear like all the way down the road, yeah.
It's like the Ric Flair woos, like
it's just unreal. The fact that we have something that special now, you know what I mean? It's like with someone new, and it's I fucking love it. I love it so much. I think he will win a world title at some point. Like he has to. So I don't
think he's beaten Reigns, but I think he's like, I think he could beat Rollins. He could win the Rumble or something like that. There's definitely something you can do.
And we're also at a very, like, somebody pointed this out recently, because I was watching like a clip of SmackDown a few weeks ago where it must have been the build up for this, because it was like 3 or 4 different baby faces all came out to like save the day, and they all got these massive pops, and you're kind of like, that's one thing I really enjoy about WWE right now, is the fact that you've got like Jey Uso, Cody Rhodes, LA Knight, you know, even Sammy still, not as much as it used to be, but still Sammy would still be there, where you've got all these like baby faces that people are proper like buzzing over, you know what I mean? And it's like, it feels like there's a lot of like, it's just, there's just a lot going on. I don't know. It's like, again, it's like the polar opposite of what we were just talking about like 10 minutes ago. You know what I mean?
They're hot in a way that like WWE just hasn't been hot since, fuck me, like you might be talking like 99, 2000. Like the crowds are just going along. We're not like, it's WWE when it got a little bit hot over the past like couple of decades, it was almost hot in spite of itself, because the crowd were protesting on behalf of someone, you know what I mean? Whereas now everyone is just on board with everything, and they've done so well, like even this year with the shows in the likes of Puerto Rico, and like expanding their universe, and kind of seeing like, but it's giving a positive impression of WWE by going to these pro WWE places who aren't going to be dickheads, who aren't jaded on the product, who are going to just get involved. And that has created a trend of sorts where now everyone is just on board for everything and just buying what they're selling, and it's been really, really good and fair play, and Triple H deserves a lot of credit with that. I think Endeavor, or TKO as they're now called, have done quite well there. I think they're doing well even in terms of like phasing Vince McMahon out, which is what they need to do. Like they got in there like, Vince McMahon's going to be a part of everything, don't you worry. And then a week later it's like, no, go over there and just do your job. Yeah, you just count the paper clips, and when you get to 100, start again.
It's honest to God, the greatest gift that you could be given as a wrestling fan is Vince McMahon being fucked out. It's just made things so fun. Like even talking to you now, Like I'm actually now like this always happens on we podcast. I'm actually looking forward to like Survivor Series and seeing what's happening and stuff. You know what I mean? Like I'm actually like because and this is usually the dead period as well. Like November, December is usually when things are at their kind of shittest. But like and then we've got like WrestleMania season. I don't know. There's a lot I'm looking forward to now. Yeah,
it's great. The women's war games may be one of them. Something that I'm low-key into is the new Damage Control storyline. There was a great promo. If you haven't seen it, go out of your way to watch the clips from this week's SmackDown. It seems to tease that like now Damage Control has added the likes of the returning Kairi Sane and Asuka to their ranks, and there's now kind of a Japanese quartet or Japanese trio there, obviously teaming with Io Sky, and they're kind of speaking Japanese among themselves. Bailey calling herself the leader, but it feels like her position is a little tenuous. And all of that is kind of building as they head into War Games on Sunday. They're going to be facing the team of Charlotte, of all people, Shotzi, Bianca Belair, and Becky Lynch is back on the main roster to discuss it. She was added on SmackDown. Thoughts on the women's War Games? Is this something you're looking forward to, or is this one which could end up low-key stealing the show given the talent involved, or do you think it's just a bit of a damn squib? What are your own thoughts?
I didn't actually know who was in it. The Shotzi's actually funny you mentioned that. That's actually a really good person to add in because that's the person who's going to do the dives and shit.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. That's the person you bring in for the vibes. Yeah. Actually, that's a good inclusion. I'm with you. Yeah, when you described to me that Damage Control stuff, you know, with the Asuka, Kairi, and Io, and then you've got Bailey and Dakota Kai. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
That's a really interesting dynamic there. You know what I mean? I love stuff like that. Like factions just give you so many like infinite cool stories that you can tell with factions. That's another reason why WWE has gotten better over the last while, because they used to never really do shit with factions, and now it's kind of like quite an integral part of their storytelling. I think this will be fun. I don't really have any sort of like predictions. I haven't been up to date with it really. I did watch the Saudi Arabia show. I happened to be home when it was on, and I love when a show is on in our time zone. I'll always give it a watch. You know what I mean? It's just something. It always feels really exciting and real special. And even though like I wasn't all right, honestly, even though I've just spent the last few minutes talking about how class WWE is, I wasn't super into the Saudi Arabia show, but I just love whenever there's something on in our time zone, I'm just like, oh, this is live, you know what I mean? Like I'm not watching this is not a watch wrestling in the morning, you know, job, you know, like this is but what you call it? I think it'll be a good match. We'll see how it goes, but I assume you've got a talking point about the elimination tag exclusions.
Yes, I do want to discuss that. Yes, very much. We're very much on the same page, and we both kind of fell on this when we were just chatting before the show. But just on the Damage Control stuff, I just want to put that on your radar. I think that's going to be something really exciting to look out for, because I don't think the split's going to happen on Sunday. You'll probably just tune into it and you'll get where they're going with the storyline, but stay tuned to that because I see endless potential for that. Like I could see Sasha Banks coming back and like being Bailey's tag team partner against him or something like that. I think there's stuff in play there that could be really exciting heading into WrestleMania. And it feels like when I was watching it on Friday, I'm like, I don't know where this is going, but I know they know where it's going now. It's building towards something. So
yeah, because like the women's
really exciting.
Like the women's division doesn't get as many like storylines. Do you know what I mean? It's typically just sort of like, all right, here's Charlotte title match. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot more.
Yeah.
I love having a story like this that can go on for months. I hope there's no. I assume there won't be, and I hope there won't be any sort of split. Like, you know, when's this on, by the way?
Saturday.
Ooh! Saturday, not even Sunday.
Yeah.
Ah, man,
there you go.
Love all this
Cobra
shit.
Keane staying up late all over again. Here you go.
Don't know about that now, but.
Well, yeah,
I'll watch it on Sunday.
let me talk you through the rest of the card, because you mightn't when you hear the rest of it. The rest of the card is as follows: you've got Rhea Ripley, Zoe Stark, which we discussed already.
Oh yes, come
on! He's just changed his mind. He's just really excited now. Gunther is defending the Intercontinental Championship against The Miz. Okay.
Oh, I want to mention one thing about that. Yeah, the amount of people who vastly overrate The Miz, right? That is my controversial. I don't think it's controversial, but apparently it's controversial opinion. I don't think The Miz is, and like I can't remember the last time I've seen The Miz wrestling. Gone, oh, banger match! Can't wait to see the next Miz match. Yeah. Now I'm not saying I think this match with Gunther will be great because Gunther is genuinely the best wrestler in the world. But I hope he gets chopped into the middle of next week, and then Gunther just batters. It's really good. This actually Gunther's a really interesting talk point as well, because we're going into WrestleMania. Gunther's already broken the record. There's really, like, I don't know. Once he beats The Miz, it's like, where else does he go with that belt? You know what I mean?
I think it's not about what's next for Gunther. I think it's about who can take Gunther down. And I think that's the story that they'll probably go into WrestleMania, and they'll probably build someone up. I definitely don't think it's The Miz. I agree with you. I think The Miz is like, he's at the stage where it's like, he's old. He's like an old shaggy dog. You know what I mean?
Another Natalia to just sort of like.
He was a great family pet for years. And, you know, you're going to keep him around as long as you can have him. And look, he does fulfill some uses. He is very good on the mic. He can he got over LA Knight and stuff like that as well. I agree. He doesn't offer that much upside, but he has a high floor. You know what I mean? The worst Miz is still interesting at the very least. Even if, look, I'm not going crazy for this match. The other match on the card announced so far is Carlito against Santos Escobar after Escobar turned on Rey Mysterio. Then, unfortunately, Rey Mysterio injured himself in the same moment and is now out for months by the looks of things. And look, Cian, I want to talk about this in general because, like, there's not much to say on those individual matches, if I'm being honest. And look, I'm into the idea of war games as a concept getting used on Survivor Series. I'm very okay with it. I'm very into getting rid of the old boring brand superiority thing they used to do, Raw versus SmackDown. I hated that, and I think a lot of people did as well. But yeah, we kind of discussed it there, and we wanted to get into it even before we were recording. What happened to the old traditional Survivor Series tag matches? I don't feel like just because you have war games, you can't have them. Why not just have like 2 of those matches and throw them in there? I'm really missing these matches. I think they add a lot. Like, am I wrong here, or what are your own thoughts?
This is another controversial. Like, most war games matches do end up being really good. Don't get me wrong, but like the first, like, what, 20 minutes of war games is skippable because nobody can pin anybody.
Yeah.
So like, you're just waiting for like everybody to be, it's like, you know, there's not gonna be a pinfall, so you're like, well, you know, I don't really need to technically. I mean, I will watch it, but I don't need to. What really bothers me, I don't think war games should be a part of this. I think war games should be something completely separate to Survivor Series. Survivor Series tag matches, right, are class because there is just an infinite number of stories that you can tell with a 5-on-5 elimination based off who gets eliminated. Does somebody end up being the sole survivor? Like, imagine, for example, like I don't know, like Balor and JD McDonough get eliminated from Judgment Day and the rest of them survive, and then it makes them kind of go, like, who's the leader here? You know what I mean? Would it could create a rift there, or like somebody could be the sole survivor. They could elevate a younger wrestler. You know what I mean? Let's say like Lyra Valkyria is like the sole survivor alongside somebody else, and they've beaten like. There is so many stories and so many directions you can go in with an elimination tag match, and you have to watch it all as well because, like, start to finish, you know, there's all. And do you know what I used to love? Now I know a lot of people weren't into Raw or SmackDown, right? But I used to love all the stare downs you'd get in between matches, like where you get, like, for example, like, or Bobby Roode and Triple H staring each other down, you know what I mean, and like things like that, just random little ones where you don't think about them, and then you see them and you're like, oh. Or like, do you remember, I saw a clip there recently of Survivor Series a few years ago when one member of the Shield was on Team SmackDown and the others were on Team Raw, and they reunited to beat up all the security and attack. I think it was Dean Ambrose was on his own, so they all, like, you know, they teamed up for a temporary moment. Like, just there's so many things. Like, it's honest to God, probably my favorite match type. Now that I'm talking to you about it now, there's so many things I love about it, and like the fact they just scrapped it for like war games that you can do literally at any time. I don't know. I just don't think war games is as good. That's just, I don't know, my own opinion on it.
I don't think that it has to be an either or scenario. I'm okay with using war games here. Like, if they need a gimmick and they need a big point of the year to kind of give war games, because that's what war games always was. It was kind of like the Royal Rumble in that you had it at its set time of year. Granted, of course, yeah, you could just have a December pay-per-view called War Games, and that would solve that problem. I feel that you can have like Survivor Series style matches as a part of it. I don't feel like you have to get rid of one to accommodate the other. They're two completely different concepts, and it is very weird. It's like it's saying, we're going to do the Royal Rumble, guys, but instead of Royal Rumble matches, we're going to have Elimination Chamber match. And it's like, well, that's just a different concept. That's just a different thing. Like, it's not like the Royal Rumble is for Royal Rumbles and Survivor Series is for Survivor Series matches. So yeah, I'm fine with war games. I think it's grand. It's a big deal concept in the same way I think selling Survivor Series matches is big deal concepts, unless there's big stakes on the line, which, if you try to do that every year, it becomes contrived, which is why they fell into that brand superiority loop, because that felt like a big enough reason for them to do it, which obviously was shy. So I get why they need to have a big selling point for this, and I'm fine with being mortgaged, but like just have Team Gunther versus Team Miz, Team Carlito versus Team Santos. And again, you can just do it. You like if you watch back like 1999 or 2000 Survivor Series matches, when they had the mid card, it was like the full novelty of it, where a clothesline all of a sudden got you a pinfall because it's a 15-minute match. So and it was just like anything can be a pinfall here because they don't have the time.
That is actually, that is something I love about those matches. I forgot about
that. Yeah. I don't know. Look, it'll be fun. I'm sure we'll have a lot to speak about afterwards. I'm sure there'll be a lot to discuss.
The Blue Thunderbomb getting a 3 count. That is so funny. Yeah.
There you go. Or like, you know, or someone losing to a roll up. Like, how did that ever happen to that?
Imagine.
Yeah. But anyway, Corporate Gain, I'm sure it's going to be fun. And look, we'll have a lot to discuss. And we're getting into WrestleMania season. So we've plenty of more excuses to chat. Hopefully AEW is better. We'll see if Randy Orton ends up coming back, or if they go into it as TBA and then do Randy Orton and have him booed out of the Chicago Arena. It'd be quite funny. But yeah, we will catch up for future chats. In the meantime, thanks for joining us today on page 180 for our chat. Always a pleasure. And I know our listeners, especially those of us who have followed us over from the Low Blows days, love getting to hear your voice again. Hope all's well and chat soon.